Hey everyone, welcome back to Low Key It's Not a Podcast. I'm Amanda, as you know, and today I have Anna Bettencourt with me. Me and Anna, we met through mutual friends, but I feel like I've known about you. It's just like a weird Christian circle where you just know about each other.
That's Beaver County.
The Beaver County Christian circle.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows everybody and you hear about everybody and everybody's related. And you're one of those people that's related to everybody.
I do. There's always someone a relation to pull in. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Anna, why don't you give a little bit about yourself and we will dive right in.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm Anna. I am 29 years old. I grew up in Beaver County. I tried to move away for 1 month. It didn't work. So came back and still here. So I am one of four girls. I have 3 sisters, so which has always been kind of part of my life and story. And my parents are pastors, which is also exciting and cool and part of my testimony as well. But yeah, so happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I'm excited you're here.
Yeah.
And then you're in school right now for. You went back to school.
I did.
Correct.
Yeah.
For mental, and you're going for is it counseling or is it you're going to be an actual therapist?
Yeah, they're interchangeable terms.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you want to say. The profession is technically a counselor. So
okay.
Yeah,
how did you
therapy.
know you wanted to do that?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't for a while.
Yeah.
If you would in my early 20s, it would not have been a thing because I didn't process my emotions well. If you like attachment styles, it's I was pretty avoidant and just learned how to deal with my emotions more completely and intentionally through the rest of my 20s. But I mostly started the journey because I was working with kids in a local city as a day camp counselor, and I loved working with these kids, especially with big behaviors. I just had a heart for understanding them. And then that led to a trauma intervention training I attended, which was really cool.
Yeah.
One of the first people to do that in Beaver County. And then I was practicing that, and I'm like, I'm going to learn more. I need to learn more. It was cool because, kind of a personal track of me learning how to process emotions and integrating that with faith. And then seeing me wanting to help children who are misunderstood process emotions and help parents understand what behaviors might be really saying, what the child might be communicating through them. So yeah, I'm like, let me develop my skills and just go for it, get my master's, which I said I'd never do, but
yeah, I know who wants more school.
Right. Yes. Right. But that's okay. And I'm glad I'll be graduating in August. So
yeah,
that's exciting.
I know you're officially, I feel like when you go to school that long, you're when it's coming up, you're oh, I can breathe again and go back to normal life. Mm-hmm. And then you say that to yourself and then you never have a normal, you're always just chaotic.
Yeah. Right. I'm like, wow, it's my last winter break. Thank God. And then I'm like, wait, that means I just work next Christmas, Okay,
yeah. Instead of school, now it's work. Now you get to make money instead of spend money.
That's the positive. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my friend. She got it's weird. She's an OT, an occupational therapist. And it's weird. So she's technically has her doctorate, but she didn't go to school. She only went to school extra 3. I think it's a 3-year program, a 2-year program. And I remember when she graduated, her senior year, she was just oh my God, I just want to work. I feel all I'm doing is clinicals and I know what I'm doing. I just want to work. And I'm just spending money instead of I can't make money.
Right.
And I remember her just being I'm ready to get out in the world. And then now that she's working, she's oh my God, now I'm what the heck? Now I just want to be a mom.
Right.
You go from each phase of life. You're always wanting the next thing.
Yeah. The cycles and
Right. Yeah, but so I had you on here because I thought it was really cool. I kind of knew to ask you about singleness because of the group you started. Is it? I don't know. Was it called Pittsburgh Singles Gathering or the Singles Gathering?
The Singles Gathering. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that was really awesome. I always thought that was really cool that you did that. And my sister actually went to. Mm-hmm. It was funny. You started it and she was so excited to go, and then she met her now husband. A week before, I forget, or they knew each other, great. But they got they started talking about dating, and then I think they went to one together.
Yeah, they went to the first event,
hit it off.
Yep.
But so it was so funny. So she I kind of knew about it from that, and so I wanted to hear more about it because I obviously am not single. And I don't know, I feel like, you know, singleness is such a weird thing, especially in the church, because you're like told to like have a heart for, like, you know, like you want to have a heart for those people, but at the same time, it's like, we shouldn't treat you like you're any different. And I feel like it's just become like an awkward, like, it's almost like an awkward topic, because you're like, you don't want to like offend the person, but at the same time though, you want to have a heart for them and not let them feel like left out.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of just like pick your brain on it and kind of dive into that topic. So I guess the first question to ask you is, has it been hard for you, like being single? You're almost 30. So how do you feel in that?
Yeah. I would say I actually love being vulnerable, about it, because it's been hard. I think that it was like nowhere in like growing up what I thought. My mom got married like 2 weeks after turning 20. And I was like, that's going to be me too. I actually like I was looking back at these pictures. Like I was 4 years old pretending to get married to my cousin, which is weird, but still it's cute for a kid. Right. And then like at 7, my Halloween costume was a bride, you know? So like, it's been on my mind, all growing up, and just always been a desire. So definitely it's hard. It's hard to take in, what the church does, try to help and preach when it is addressed, which sometimes is helpful. Sometimes it's not. But then it's also hard because, there's sometimes a gap for that ministry, for that population in the church. So it can be tricky, but it's also rewarding, it's both.
Yeah, that is like exciting. Do you think your family, like, how has your family been? Like, have they helped you in that? Or, because I know, both of you, as we were talking earlier, both your younger sisters I know very well. And they both got married younger than you. Was that hard for you, or was it kind of just like no, like everyone's always been really supportive of me in that?
Yeah, I will always say both. I'll always say both, because it's so joyful. Like I said, I have all sisters, so getting brothers and like growing to love them is incredible. It's actually one of my brother-in-law's birthdays as we speak. So like so joyful, but also hard in, not getting what you want. And I heard your testimony on your podcast the other day, and just like when you want something so deeply, and there's just like there's not like a timeline, it's out of control, is hard. So my family, they are helpful. It's just like you kind of brought up too. It is hard to understand what you haven't gone through, So a lot of well, it's coming, and when you hear he's on the way, he's coming year after year, it's like, okay, but we said that last year. So right, the faith is encouraging, but at the same time, it's like sometimes you got to take it back, and I think that's where like grief is important too, to process. Well, I have faith, but at the same time, I'm grieving that it hasn't happened. So
and I think too, like, this is like a whole other topic that we could even go down, but like disappointment in things, like disappointment is such a thing that I feel like, and when you're disappointed in God, it's almost like your soul's like, well, I can't be disappointed in God, but it's like, no, you had expectations, and it's okay to be like upset that it didn't go the way you thought it was going to go. But you have to like almost like pivot your brain and keep moving forward. And that is like very difficult. And that's something like I've always struggled with, is I'm like a person with like, I always say I romanticize everything, and I have these high expectations, and I'm like, this is how it's going to like turn out. Or like, even like, it's so stupid, but like, even like, I think I talked about it on one of the podcasts, like the way I like have conversations with people, I'll like have that conversation in my brain, and then it won't go that way. And then that like messes me up. And I'm like, why am I making up a conversation? Like, it's just like, we're just normal people talking. Like, why am I thinking that through? But I know like the disappointment end of it, for me especially, was like really hard with, I like almost felt like I couldn't be disappointed in God, and like I wasn't allowed to do that. And I think with like singleness, it is hard. And too, people always try to be like, well, Paul, like they'll bring up Paul to you, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not Paul, and I don't want to be Paul. You know?
That's something always to take in and process, and like, and like Jesus are like our biggest model of like the life we're here to live too. That's it's something great. And it's like, yeah, you're right. But it is so interesting, right, in expectations. And I think that disappointments. I think that like that's really what I cherish through these years though, is like the refining seasons of like, there's just a summer where I really delve into being like David, who pours his heart out because he's disappointed, and being like, I'm allowed to do that with the Lord. And and two, like with Paul, I always, you have to rectify like, well, the Bible says it's good to be single, but the Bible also says delight and you'll get the desires of your heart. So like, where do those come together, Yeah. And I feel like just like being free to allow both things to be instead of like make sense of them. And and I said once in like a Q&A, I was like, if I bring my desire for relationship, for marriage, the whole way to eternity, like there's no shame that I continued that desire. Yeah. Because a lot of people are like, well, just stop wanting it and it'll come. And like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So if that's been anyone here, like just, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't want to be single. And then bam, like there's like reels on the internet that people are like, popping their eye open, trying to implement that in their lives. And I don't hold to that.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
So with your singles gathering, which I think is like so cool that you like started that. And,
Thank you.
Like you found something that was like heavy on your heart and you like went with it and started it. And I'm sure it's touched so many people's lives and it's helped people in that season of life. Did you have like that? It was just on your heart and you started it. Like, how did you go about starting that? And what was kind of the heart behind it of why you started it?
For sure. I think that I had like, for like maybe 2 years prior to actually starting it, I had thought of ideas similar, like, oh, that'd be cool if there was fun events for Christian singles. And I would think it, and I actually I met with some pastors once and tried to start it up, just wasn't right. And then actually, when I actually started it, it was the winter of 2023, and I had gotten just angry. It wasn't actually my own singleness. It was like my sister had been dating someone who was up for Christmas. Like we all as a family loved him. We were so happy. She was happy. We're like, this is going to be it. And they broke up. And I was so mad. Like I just had like this anger and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna meet that gap to invest in people who are like me. And I think that's like why am I single? I'm not gonna figure out a why, but I know that sometimes, hey, it's gonna be for my mental health. Like I have grown in my emotions, maybe it's for ministry, right? Like here we go. The Lord used the gap for a ministry and and maybe it's just he wants a miracle story, so just like finding that like the Lord can use my life as it is. And so using it to start a singles ministry because I wanted to go to the events. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I guess I'll be the one to do them.
Yeah.
No,
I think it's really cool how you said too, like, I want to go to the events because even if like you think of it of like, it just helped you and like you're like maybe like 5 friends around you or like 5 people in like your sphere of influence. It's like, at least like that's a testimony itself is that it like helped you guys. Like it didn't need to go as big as it probably got. Like you were probably so surprised when it got as big as it got. And I think it's so cool, like your heart to just help people with that and like normalize it. Because it is like such an awkward, like I've always felt like that because I know like growing up, like I'm the type of person, I hate being alone. Like that's probably like, I probably need therapy for that aspect of it. But like in high school, like I always had a boyfriend. I always had a really close best friend that like, and then if like my best friend had other friends, it was like I clinged to someone else because I just never wanted to be alone. Like I hate being alone. I'm still to this day, I probably struggle with it a little bit. Like when I became a mom, being home with Anaya, I struggled being alone home with her because I was like, I need to go out. I need to socialize. Like I need people in my life.
Yeah.
And that's definitely like my personality too. But like growing up, when I went to college, Matt stayed here and I went away for college. So that was like, I had to be separate from him, even though I made him drive up like every weekend. And I got to college, thought my roommate was going to be like my best, like my only friend. Like we're just going to be each other's everything. Like we're going to be so close. And then that obviously is not reality. And that didn't work out. And I remember just being like, what the heck? Like I just like, I don't like being alone. Like, so for people, so I've never really like understood dealing with those feelings because I've always just had somebody. Like I've always had Matt. I've always had a person that I could like bounce to. So what's like one thing that you feel like would help somebody who is struggling with feeling alone, or like they don't like that being alone, like they want to be around, like they need to be around people and they're like scared to be alone almost?
Right. Wow, that's such a good question because yeah, I feel like you said, it could be different layers. Like you're like, right, maybe we're dealing with, like, if I go into the counseling world, like dealing from, an unmet need, like from childhood. But like but also like they don't have to be, like I was saying, be vulnerable. You don't have to deny that. You don't have to be like, I'm so good alone. I'm so good alone, because we aren't made to be alone, right? We're made to be in relationships. So I think it's beautiful to like cherish that desire still, but to still work on it with the Lord, still find contentment like in the throne room, like in the secret place, like just finding, I love that like Give Me Jesus song, like you are my one thing, and like even singing that out, even if you're part of you is not believing it, but like tell my soul to rejoice, like, right? So like I would say meet it, spirit, soul, and body, like meet it with the Lord, meet it in your soul. Maybe it's processing it, maybe writing out where's this coming from, and then physically, how can I meet it? Do I stay in more than I could? Should I go to events or serve in the church? How do I take action steps? For that autonomy and spirit, soul, and body. I guess that's what I'd say.
I think that's really good. What's one thing that you wish that people understood about like what singleness is and like what it means to people who are single?
I think we all get a sort of trial where we have to stand in faith, and I'm not leveling any different sorts of trials. Like someone goes through this and someone goes through that. But I think that to understand that it is a sincere emotional process, it's a sincere disappointment that's really, it might not be as fixable as some of the catchphrases are, that make it seem to be. It's more multi-layered than, oh, you're just not trying hard enough. Like go on the apps, we try them, So I think like there's layers to complexity of our heart, and I think people might want to be vulnerable with it. And like if someone just wants to maybe just be open to hearing a little more of how it is painful, instead of, Band-Aids might not be needed, just like, wow, I didn't see it that way, might be helpful, just to be like, they're trying to understand.
I think that's good. So on the topic of dating apps, what, like, I've never even been on a dating app, but like I feel like that's like, that takes a lot. Like you have to be very vulnerable, and it's like kind of scary because I feel like that's also could be a scary movie. Like being on a dating app. So what was your, like, were you on dating apps, you said?
Yeah, I've tried them on and off for years. Yeah. They're interesting.
I mean, if you feel comfortable, if I didn't ask you, what's like what's like a story that you can share with us about a dating app, whether it's funny, whether it was like scary.
There's a lot of funny things. Like the last time I tried, I would just like screenshot things people say. Like it was a Christian app. So then the prompt was why Jesus matters. And someone's like, I'm looking for, in that section, I'm looking for this type of race of person. And it's just like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, okay. It's just, you never know what you're going to find. But, so there was a season, I think it was 2021, where I was reading a book by Henry Cloud, and it's How to Get a Date Worth Keeping. And it's really like stretching you if you're really boxed in to like one way of thinking, like they're going to come on my doorstep. Like Dr. Henry Cloud is like, try these things, like get outside of your house. So he was like, try to date anyone once. So in that season, I tried Facebook dating of all things, which is
I've heard
crazy
horror stories of Facebook dating. I didn't even know you could do that.
It's so interesting. The most interesting rounds of dates, and I did the most like instead of just chatting forever and see if someone will ask you out to coffee, like that was like, I'm going to initiate coffee right away and like see this person outside the phone. So odd. The first person like didn't show up. And then I've waited 30 minutes. And then he was like, please give me another chance. He found me like on Snapchat, Instagram, and I like had to block all of them. I was like, no, you didn't.
That's so
I waited
weird.
for 30 minutes. I told you I was at the restaurant and you didn't say anything.
I know it feel like mattered that much. Like, you would think you would show up on time.
Right.
Like, that's something about your character.
Yeah. I got kissed on a first date from Facebook dating too. Like I was in like a, fight, flight, or freeze. I ended up freezing because he like got out of the chair and hugged me around the waist, touched my hair, and then just like went in and gave me a peck. And I was like, I froze. And my sister after was so mad at me that I didn't like slap him across the face. That I was like, what just happened? So yeah. So yeah, good stories.
That's so crazy. I don't even think I could even like imagine me being on a dating app because I feel like I'm like the most gullible person alive. God knew that I would never be able to handle it. Because
God knows.
I literally believe everything. I would be like, oh my gosh, like this story happened to you. Or like, I'd be like, oh, your grandmother. Like, I literally feel so bad it'd be so bad. It really would be such a bad situation for me.
Right.
But that has to be hard. The Christian dating apps, I've heard a lot of horror stories from the Christian dating apps from some of my friends saying that like the people on there are just so odd and that it was like almost too that people who weren't really like they didn't really have like they were kind of like I don't really believe in God, I don't really care what I believe. We're going on it because they were just like they felt like it was a more safe place and it really just in reality was not. And it was just everybody was getting on it. There was really it was basically you had to answer these questions and that was it. And that's kind of crazy. Like, I admire you a lot for doing that and putting up with that and stuff because that is crazy. I mean, I look at guys now and I'm pretty sure there's like a thing that like guys are maturity wise. I always forget how they say like years behind women. So it's like, I can't even imagine like dealing with that.
Right. I feel like there's a lot of factors, but it's interesting.
I have no tolerance. It's so bad. I would literally be dying laughing.
Yeah. Oh, you like triggered my memory. And I mean, but not everyone, I'm on there. So like there are normal people, but it's hard. It does take like the last time I did it, I was like, it's called like burning the haystack, like just really being like really swiping and superficial. Like, don't think that'll work. Like, not wasting time, like chatting if you really don't see potential. But I did end up in a chat with someone and I put that I liked the Apparently kid from YouTube, like in my profile. And he started sending like 20 messages saying, apparently, like saying, like making, I was like, no.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta go.
That's so funny. It's like, it is funny too because you're like, the way your connection is based off of like just like strict facts. And it's like, unless you meet someone, you don't really know their personality and how it connects to like the facts. Cause I could say, like I always tell people, it's funny when you meet me, like I seem like this like bubbly, like outgoing person, but like the way like even my humor is like I'm like a stupid humor person. Like I think as like a girl, you expect me to be more, like I don't know, like more mature, but in reality, I just like stupid humor. Like I don't want to have to think about the joke. Like I just want to laugh. And like I was literally telling Matt's dad that last night because he was laughing. He was like, I would have never thought those are the kind of movies you like. And I was like, I don't want to have to think about the joke. Like I just want to be mind numb and like laugh. Like I don't want to think. And I do. I laugh. I think everything's funny. Like I don't know. And usually I always say like usually when I don't get some, if I look confused and I'm laughing, usually I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Because that's like definitely my personality. But Matt's like different. Like Matt, I feel like his personality is more. You would think he would like the stupid humor. And I feel like he's not like that. Like he's more, he likes to like think about the joke and like, I don't know, he likes sarcasm. Yeah. Whereas like me, I'm going to be honest, I don't get sarcasm like half the time. And it's so funny, but like you don't get that from a dating app. Like you can't get that from just like looking about information about people. Yeah. And so you're right. You have to go on these dates because you have to know how the personality clicks with their profile.
Right.
And it's a hard thing, like trying to navigate who is who and like just like, you literally have to figure out their personality from just a bunch of questions they answered, and that would be so hard. And then a picture.
Right, pictures, yeah. You're thinking the same thing, like, I have to put so much thought into this prompt, or it's not gonna, people aren't gonna like me. Yeah, it's interesting. And you're saying something, like, really valid. Like, one time, like, years ago, I like put in like 3 months online before meeting someone in person because it was out of state. And it's kind of like the show Love is Blind, like how people build the connection across the wall. Like there is a connection that gets built, and then you build up some person in your head, and then finally meeting in person, like it was heartbreaking because they were not the same person, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's why I kind of made that try to be my model, because it's so interesting, you know, what you can infer, like when you fill in the gaps of the dating app and either jump to the wrong conclusion negatively about someone, because I'm sure I've passed up great opportunities on apps because I know there's great guys out there.
Yeah.
Or you fill in what you want to fill in, and then it really ends up being a letdown and hurting you. So yeah, that was definitely a hard season.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Very hard.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up Love is Blind. I love Love is Blind.
Yeah, I know.
Me and Matt said this past season.
I hate to love it.
I know. This past season was so annoying because I feel like there was just so much, like, I feel like they did not do good, like, vetting the people for the show.
Right.
But, which everyone was saying. But me and Matt, we were laughing because the one guy, everyone was, like, coming at him because it was Nick. Everyone, because the girl he was with, Hannah, was like, he just wanted to be famous, like all this stuff. And me and Matt were like watching the reunion while working out. We used to watch while working out.
Yeah.
And we're like in the gym working out. And we're like, what do you mean he was on the show to be famous? All of you, you want to go on TV.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be famous. Like, what kind of question even is that? And it is like so funny. Like, it is hard not like seeing people's hearts when you're in that situation, because you're just genuinely looking for love. You're genuinely looking for a connection with someone, because, you know, like, it's biblical that we're not meant to do life alone. Like, you need people in your life. Yeah. And so it's the same thing. It goes with with any relationship. You're just looking for a connection. And it's hard doing that when you're not face to face. Yeah. And I mean, we 100%, me and Matt always say, like, racism is real. Like, superficialness is like, everyone has that, because even like, you can say it doesn't matter what skin color or how you look is, but it does, like, it definitely does matter. Like, I always say that to people. Like, I always say, for sure, I judge what I say to a person based off the way, like, almost like how you are looking at each other and the connection you feel and like how your conversation's going. You like feel people out that you don't know. So I can't even imagine, like, on an app, you're just seeing this picture of them, and like, it's so hard. That's the thing I never understood about the swiping. Because I did her dating app. Was it my cousin? I'm pretty sure it was my cousin. She came in for my sister's wedding, and I remember sitting there like messing around with it, and I was like, this, like, how can you not be like superficial? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it is, yeah.
Because you just like you're just looking at them, you're looking at their age and like a couple interests, and it's like, do we connect? Yeah. And it's so hard to navigate that.
Sure, it is. And I like a couple things from that is like, you know, working on, if you're someone like me who's like, I'm trying to, all these years been trying to work on, you know, my preconceived like prejudices and what I might be limiting myself in singleness. Like, you know, like one of those things is being open to, you know, dating outside of your initial attraction. And there's merit to that, not being closed-minded, but at the same time, like, God's wired you a certain way. Like, God created the brain with the attraction piece. So it is like, I feel like if you are like, well, I'm going to just deny attraction totally, and then you're starting a relationship, and it's going to come up, you know, there might be, there could be situations where it's beautiful connection, it works, but even Love is Blind, people get like disappointed, and like often like they try to work on it, but even if attraction's not there, like it's not everything, but it is part of the piece. And you know, so I think that's so fascinating, too. Like, if someone's really like, well, I shouldn't, like, the Lord, I know attraction's not everything, I shouldn't like base anything on that. Well, no, it's a valuable piece. It's a valuable something to consider. So it is. It's just funny to just listen to the podcast, read the books, and try to take it all in because, right, the Bible doesn't talk a lot about dating, but and then people are trying to give godly advice. And I feel like sometimes that advice works for them. It doesn't work for everyone. Do you know what I mean? So it's like taking like, that's good advice. Is that what the Lord wants for me? Like a Ruth situation. Like I'm going to initiate as the girl. Like, that's actually fine. Like, is that going to be everyone's story? Like, is the girl supposed to initiate because Ruth did? No, it can be. The stories can be different, right? So,
no, I think that's really good what you just said.
It's like filtering it. Like, cool. Thanks for that godly advice. Like, Heart of Dating podcast. Cool. Like, is that for me though? So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely hard. Being Christian in general right now, I think is so hard too, because there's just so many things that, like, obviously Jesus is clear on like who we are called to be and who we are. And like, there is that, like, who you are, and there's an image that God portrays on who we are. Like, it's clear in the Bible who we are. But at the same time, though, there's things like dating apps where it's like, obviously they didn't have dating apps back in the day. And then like now you're getting into even things with like the way you look, like you're getting into lipo, and like people are getting like filler and like Botox, like different things. Right. And then you get into the health aspect of everything. And there's just so many routes to go. And it's crazy because you're just trying to navigate it right now because it's like you can follow scripture as much, and all you can really do is just pray and ask God to guide you and lead you and just to give you peace in making those decisions and following that path.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't even imagine like the world, the way it's just going. Like, even like me and Matt always joke about like what the world's going to be like when Anaya is our age. And we're just like, I always tell him I'm scared to see what she has to deal with, because like with AI now and stuff, it's crazy. And it's so hard navigating scripture through these things and what's okay and what's not okay. And I even know like movies and shows are such a big thing in the Christian community right now, and in parenting. It's like, what are you going to allow your kid to watch? What are you not going to allow them to watch? And like guarding their heart, because you're responsible for them. And just even like that aspect, it's wild to me. Right. And it's such a hard thing to navigate. And honestly, like the only advice people I feel like could even give is, one, do you have God? Are you filled with the Holy Spirit? And are you listening to God and the Holy Spirit? Like, are you letting the Holy Spirit guide your life?
Right. The word, like, try to check it. Right.
Yeah.
Try to filter it. Yeah. You're saying like all spheres of this living in this world is like taking it and praying and finding peace, and like, does that apply to me? Does that what's the word say? And I think something like cool I just wanted to touch on too, that like I've noticed too, like how you said like the Lord knew like that you needed Matt at your age, when you met, and how your marriage progressed. Like, I think that's beautiful. That's a miracle. I see that for my two married sisters too. I'm like I see how their timeline worked, and how the story unfolded and how they're being used together now. I'm like, yes, the Lord's timing was great, so then like taking it for myself too, to be like, my story is going to also give him glory, like, and I think that that's something, it's not always comforting, sometimes I'm like, but at the same time, it's like, great, like, please write the story. Like, I feel like we take action as believers. Like, we have to take action. We take faith steps, but at the same time, like, I also want his plan, like his story, to be written. So when I like think of like people who are married, and I'm like, great, like the story was written, and so it also comforts me in the same way. I'm like, well, I can't wait for the story to be written that he has for me too. So
I think that's so cool that you said that.
Yeah.
And it's like a good perspective to have when you're in like a hard, because like, I mean, like we talked in the beginning how it can almost be like grieving it. And there's waves of grief and there's waves of disappointment. And so when you're in that like deep, like this is an okay moment, you can always sit back and like remember that God's timing is way more important than mine. Like you have you almost have like this picture that you can look at of your sisters and be like, okay, this is why God's timing works and not my timing.
Right.
And that's really cool.
It is cool. Yeah. This year I like wrote down and started saying my marriage is a miracle because like I go through seasons where I take action steps, but then I'm like, step back. I'm like, I really want you to write it,
Yeah.
So it is cool. And something so cool is, I was reading like Zachariah and Elizabeth, in the book of Luke 1, the angel comes to Zachariah and is like, your prayer's been answered. Your wife's going to have a baby. And they're like past that age, And I was like pausing. I'm like, did they stop praying that though? Like they're, let's say potentially 80 years old. Like, your prayer's been answered. How long ago did they stop that prayer? And I just love that in God's timing, he answered it because likely they stopped believing to have a child. They're like, what? We're just going to accept our life, that it didn't happen. Yeah. And I was like, their prayer's been answered. And it was just so cool that like, I think that, sometimes I'm like, have I not prayed enough for this? I'm like, the Lord hears. Yeah. But, when it happens, that story is so miraculous and cool. And they can see, they have John the Baptist as their son. It's just like really cool. It's like what comes out of those waiting moments. And yeah.
And like, look who their son was.
And their son, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's one thing that me and Matt have I always struggled because I always felt like I'm like not a person to like overdo it. It's so bad. I always get on myself because I'm like, I feel like I need to do more and do more, but I can't fake it. Like I'm not a fake it till I make it kind of person. Like I'm just real. This is me. Like I show all my emotions. I probably say things I shouldn't say. I like word vomit like crazy because I never want to be a person that fakes it till I make it. Like it's not my personality. And whether it's like biblical or not, like whether because I know there are some things that like you do have to like hold your crap together, and I don't hold my crap together. Sometimes I need to be. Yeah. But one thing with that though is that we've always said that even if we like, because it's so easy to get caught up in like, am I doing enough? Like you said, am I praying enough? Like, am I believing enough? And it's so like when you're in those bad situations in life, like when I was in the hospital, when you're dealing with being single, it's so easy to be like, did I do the right thing? Or was I like through my head, in my head, I was like, was I too excited to meet Anaya? Was it my fault that I got the induction? And like, did we pray enough for her? Did we worship enough? Was God the center? Like, it was just so many things that you can get flooded with. Yeah. But in reality, it's like God doesn't care about that. He cares that like you love him. He cares that, me and Matt might not say, for instance, like say we're not, right now, I'm not reading my Bible every day. If I'm being completely honest, like I'm not. But is God sitting up there like, oh, you're not reading your Bible, so you need to read it? I read a verse and then it means nothing to me because I'm doing it almost out of like spite of I have to do this. Or is God like, wow, Amanda was worshiping and like laughing and like talking to me today. Like it was a relation. Like I got to see her heart today and like we got to share each other's hearts. Right. And we always say that if God doesn't do anything in our life and like Anaya was like the reward and that her life will be rewarded because of our faithfulness, we always say it was worth it. Like if everything we go through, if I never get to amount to anything that's in my heart, like, but I was just obedient and faithful to God and he rewards me through Anaya and like the rest of our kids, 100%, like it was worth it. I love it. Like every struggle. And I think we like overlook that sometimes. And I love that you brought that up because, I'm sure like they felt like that. Like God's not, we didn't get our prayers answered. Like they gave up, but they were still like, they still loved God. They never left him. Right. Like Zachariah, right? I always say names in the Bible wrong. Right. Zachariah, like he did what he was called, like he did his duty and he did his job and he didn't leave God and he was rewarded it through his son. Right. And I think that's just like such a cool thing to see because sometimes our brains almost like can't wrap around that because we're so focused on the right now.
And he like didn't even receive the news well. Like he's like, what? And the angel wasn't like, oh, you didn't have enough faith when I told you like she won't get pregnant now. Like you were saying, did I do this wrong and that? Like, wow. Like it's kind of funny. Like he wasn't able to speak until the baby was born, but like he didn't receive it with the fullness, like perfect faith. And it still was completed and fulfilled. So it's like, right. Just being children of God. Like he wants to give us that blessed inheritance he has. And
yeah. I think we think sometimes that God just like sits up there and looks down on us as like, you're not doing this, you're incorrect, fix this, do this. Like, and it's almost like, no, like the reason there are rules in place, it's not because of he wants to rule over us. It's because he knows what's best for us. He knows that if you're in that one relationship and it goes too far, that when you marry your future husband one day, that relationship you're going to hold on to, and you're going to carry that into your relationship with your kids, with like your grandkids. Like it's never going to go away. Yeah. And I think like it's so important to look at that in life and to just always constantly be reminding yourself that. Yeah. But it's kind of cool that we even like started talking about this like around Christmas. It's like around Christmas time right now.
Yeah, the Christmas story. and
I'm so sick. It's so bad. I keep coughing.
Right. But clearly it's winter. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly it's winter because I'm always sick all winter. But one thing I wanted to ask you was with all of this that we talked about, like with singleness, with everything, like how much harder has it been for you being a pastor's daughter in this? Because I'm not like a pastor's kid. I always say I'm like kind of a pastor's kid because my parents were very heavily involved in ministry. They did the youth ministry at our church growing up. And I always say I was treated like a pastor's kid. But like I know for me, I always felt like I had to act a certain way, and people do look at you differently and they do talk to you differently and you're held to it definitely for sure a different standard than everybody else. So how has that affected you being like a pastor's daughter in this situation too?
Yeah, for sure. I think it would starts young because like, I think it's just like just being told all your life, like there's gonna be great, all these guys and you're gonna get married, I think the even if it doesn't happen, faith, like perspective, like wasn't part of my childhood, which is okay. Like the incredible faith I was instilled with was a beautiful foundation. Yeah. But I think like just believing since I was little, like, my pastor growing up would be like, stay away from boys till you're 25. Like, and I like took it seriously. I think honestly that part, like probably like was part of my growth because I was like, oh, like don't even talk to boys. So like maybe like my ability to have a, relationship with a guy like was limited because I just didn't build the skills as a kid. But I think too, like my example of pastors' wives was that they got married young. Yeah. So like I saw that growing up, like it happened to my mom. It happened to, where my dad worked, the other pastor's wife. And it was like, that's just what's going to happen. Yeah. And then, growing up, it's like, like, oh, people will love saying like, I think you'll be the first one to get married. And I did hear that a couple times, like, and I'd be like, secretly like, me too, but then like it doesn't happen. Or people will ask like, so your younger sisters are married? Like, yes, or they'll come to me as if like they discovered that fact and it was their big revelation. It's like, right. Yeah. Yep. You figured that out, didn't you? So yeah, it's interesting because you're right. There's an expectation. Or like my older sister, like before going on a mission trip this summer, someone came up to her and was like, I see that your future husband's going to be on that mission trip with you. And she's like, that doesn't help. Like, because it didn't happen. It wasn't true. And just sometimes their well-meaning is a little twisted because they want to be like, oh, I told the pastor's kid that their future spouse is yada yada, and look, like they want to have that story. And like, if let's say that would have happened, if that man just would have like kept it back and been like written it down and be like, the Lord had told me that, and like I love that happened. Like that would have been really cool. Yeah. But so I think it is hard because one, just like the example I had and what I expected based on what I saw as a kid, and and then two, just interesting opinions. Yeah.
Always. Yeah. It's always the opinions. You get them. I mean, into like whether you're a pastor's kid or a ministry kid or not, you still get those opinions. I mean, it just is. Yeah. Me and Matt always say, like, especially like our job being in marketing and social, and we do a lot of social media stuff and videos, and we always tell people, everyone wants to add value. Like God, I don't know why. It's just like a thing that everyone just feels that they want to add value to your life. And that's why some of the, we even say too, that's why some of the social media accounts do so well. It's because that's how they structure their social media, is they're adding value. But everybody wants to give their opinion. Everybody wants to be the person that like fixes you.
Right.
It's almost like we feel this reward for fixing people.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like so challenging. And when you're going through something, it's like almost like you have to remind yourself like, it's okay. Like it's what God says, not what they say. It matters what God says.
Yeah.
Like, and it's hard to remind yourself that, honestly. Like sometimes, you have good days where it's so easy to remember scripture. And then there are like days where you're like, I can't remember anything. And like, what is happening?
Right. Highs and lows. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking too, like, I love how you say that, because I think I have been able to learn sometimes to take what the person's doing and filter it, like, and see the well-meaning. Like, and like there's a woman who's like my friend's grandma who comes to the church, and she's always like, I'm believing for you. And like, honestly, that's actually helpful.
Yeah.
I've been praying, like, to know, like, even though you're like, cool, thanks,
Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, thank you, like, for standing with me and not giving up on it.
No, yeah. And it's good to know too, like, in a past podcast I touched on when I talked about with Cam, when we talked about like having faith and like having prayer warriors. That's even something too where it's like it's good to have people around you who they're not like, obviously they're not coming up to you like praying with you constantly, but like at home when nobody's around, when no one's looking, like they're praying for you and they're rooting for you and they're fighting your battles for you. And like they're standing beside you. Like that is good.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like to anyone who has someone in their life that's struggling, that they see struggling with being single, and like they want to take that next step of their life, like they want to start a family, and they just like seems like there's no hope. Like if you have someone like that in your life, like instead of talking to them and trying to add value, like sit back and pray for them and be that spiritual warrior for them that's fighting that battle for them mentally, because it is a spiritual battle, because mentally, like it comes against your image. I think, like, because we look at ourselves and we're like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I? So I think that's even something good for like people like me, who it's like I'm in a relationship, but I have friends who I know have struggled and I don't know what to say to them. It's like, you don't have to say something. Like you can just be sitting back and praying for them.
Yeah. That's super nice.
And I think that's
super
like
appreciated.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's like a cool thing that you said, that lady at your church. That's like really cool that she does that.
It is. Yeah. So like, even though maybe it's not always what you're being told at church is like always, it's not always helpful, but when you are able to take it and appreciate the heart behind it, it ends up being a blessing. So yeah.
So my last question for you is, if you could give one piece of advice that you could give to someone who feels stuck in a season where everyone around them is married and starting families, and they just feel alone and don't really understand the season in their life, what advice would you give them, or like what would you say to them?
Advice for someone feeling stuck is the Lord has space for, like I said at the start, both joy and sorrow. And it's so freeing to be authentic in the throne, at the feet of Jesus. Like, I also look to Hannah in the Bible, and her story was also related to pregnancy, but she went into the tabernacle and just like wept as if she like seemed drunk, and that's what it seemed like to the priest observing her. And he's like, he misunderstood, but then he's like, you know what, your faith, like your prayers will be answered. And I think that like giving yourself that chance to feel, to experience, to come to the Lord authentically, and also allowing his joy and transformation to occur in your life, and, not being limited by the label, but, being like, this is real. I'm authentic with my desires. Don't idolize, your desire for marriage, that you can be, delight instead, delight in the Lord. And just let both of those things, be your reality, and just have more freedom to feel and to have faith.
Yeah, I think that was really good.
Thanks.
I can't even add anything because it was just like cherry on top. So I want to thank you for being on here and being vulnerable and sharing your story. I appreciate it. And I know it's going to help a lot of people whether it's on my podcast or in real life. I know it's going to help a lot of people. And I
appreciate it.
Just thank you for coming out and doing that.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and for asking the questions.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. If you would like to keep hearing more about this, make sure you subscribe, and we'll talk to you next week.